everybody, it's Sharon here. Welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, thank you so much for joining me. I have set my camera up differently again, so I'm hoping you get a reasonable view of what I'm doing. I will excuse myself, I don't actually have a non-stick craft mat to use, so whenever I do something that is messy, like using glues and such, I put a piece of what we call baking paper, I think in America you call it parchment paper, over my craft mat, so it may get a bit noisy. It sort of, as you know, it crinkles a little bit, so I apologise if that's a problem, but I just like to protect my craft mat while I'm working. Now this video is a couple of days coming, so I apologise for that. I had planned to do it sooner, but life kind of got in the way. We've had visitors from out of town and lots of fun times, so I'm just getting back to it now. I have been behind the scenes working on my wedding journal, and I have got the cover ready. So it is, I'll just make sure I'm in camera. It's just a Reader's Digest cover that I have covered in fabric. I actually reinforced the spine a little bit with some card. You can probably see the edges of the cardboard underneath. And I've covered it in fabric, and then I have lined the inside with some homemade paper, some recycled paper that I made. And I actually finished that last night, so it's been left sitting to dry overnight, and I'm really happy with the way it came out. So I'll set that aside. Now I've also picked out my papers for this journal. I'm using paper packs, so I've actually decided on 2 paper packs with the help of the person that I'm creating this for, who's, as I said, giving it as a gift. So sorry for the glare. So I have Kaisercraft Forget-Me-Not, and I have a Kaisercraft Antique Essentials. So I've taken paper from both of those packs. To start with, I have used 3 sheets from each pack, and we've used the Save the Date imagery to help us choose the colour scheme for this journal. So I'm not going to give away too much, but that has been the inspiration behind the papers that I've used. So with that, I'll show you I've created the signatures. I decided I didn't want to move forward until I had the signatures ready to go. Just checking that I'm in frame again. So very simple, seems to be my middle name. I like to keep it relatively minimalistic, I suppose, is something I do like. I like simple colours, simple I don't like it to be too busy, is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, I'm stumbling on my words. So anyway, so I've got the paper pack, the Antique Essentials, is single-sided, and the Forget-Me-Not paper pack is double-sided. So I've decided to use the single-sided on the outside of each signature. And then I have, I think I counted 8 just tea stain pages, and then the coloured paper on the inside. And I've done that with each of the signatures. Oops. So the inside paper and the last signature. With the Reader's Digest, I tend to do 3 signatures. Now, sometimes when I add the embellishments, the book does become too bulky, so I have been known to take out some of the tea stain paper before, or to cull on the embellishments I've made. That remains to be seen. We'll just play it by ear and see how we go. Now the other thing I've been doing behind the scenes is, I do have quite a few. I actually messed up cutting one of the sheets, so I had to get another one. So I have plenty of that one. But these are my leftovers, so we'll have lots of fun with those. A little bit more there. Now, I also have got a little bit crazy trying to decide what sort of embellishments I wanted to add and to organize my color schemes and things like that. I may have gone a little bit crazy with printing. So I have a pile here. I have become a new lover of Gayle Agostinelli's digitals. So as you can see on the top of my pile here, I've purchased and printed a couple of her trim digitals. And I've also become a lover of Tracie Fox's, my first purchase of hers as well. I've purchased a couple of her kits as well. So one of them are the collage sheets. So I've printed them on brown paper, and I've also printed them on white card, and I do have plans for them, so I'm excited to give those a go. Whether I do them on camera or whether I show you guys afterwards, I'm not sure yet, but I've also purchased Tracie Fox's labels, which I'm excited to use. Now, I have actually been busy cutting Tracie Fox, some ArtVintage, which I've spoken about before. I've printed the images small so I can use them as embellishments. And I've also got some big ones there to use as journaling cards. And I've also got Gayle Agostinelli's beautiful papers here. I can't think of the word for them. Eco-dyed papers. So I'm excited to give those a try as well. Okay. Now, I did mention that I was going to do some paint chip sample cards and turn those into embellishments. So I'll just move some things aside. Now, I did actually start this video once before and I was very tired. It was really late at night. I had ideas bouncing in my head. Decided I'd come out and have a play, and guys, I was way too tired. I just stopped talking. I was busy working away and realized that I wasn't including any of you, so I turned the camera off and did a little bit more and went to bed, which is probably what I should have done in the start. But sorry, just grabbing my paintbrush. Okay. Now I just keep a container of water, low-level water, on my desk, and when I'm using my paintbrush I can just pop it in there to keep it soaking while I'm not using it. And I find that works best for me. Now, as I said, I did start this video earlier, so I do have a couple of things pre-organised, but I'll show you what I did to start with. And I'm just looking for... Okay. Firstly, I mentioned tones in a previous video. I think it was the paper tea dyeing. And I have two different paint chip samples here. One is called White Dawn and one is called Winter Wishes. Now, I don't know if it's going to show in camera, but the Winter Wishes has a slightly warmer tone, whereas the White Dawn is slightly a brighter white. So that being said, that steered me into deciding how I wanted to use both of these colours. So I'll give you a little example as we move forward. So the White Dawn, because it's that slightly whiter, brighter white, I decided I wanted to tone that down and try and give a slightly more vintage feel. So what I decided to do was to cover it in some, I have here some sewing pattern paper, and I decided I would just Mod Podge that. I may need to get another piece. Oh no, it'll work that way. Just the plain part of the pattern paper, so I have the brown only over the top. I do have a little bit of glue on there, but that will be fine. So I'm just going to Mod Podge that on, just to give you an idea. I have actually done some ahead of time because, as I said, I started this video once already, but just to show you my process, we'll go ahead and we'll do this one. Does anybody else have brushes that lose the bristles out of them? I love this brush, but it's doing it to me every now and then, and it's quite a nuisance. Okay, so just a nice coating. Okay, and then with the tissue, the pattern paper. Now with this, I'm not Mod Podging over the top because I wanted to have that paper feel rather than a dry glue feel. It is possible to put the Mod Podge over the top, but that's not the aesthetic that I'm after. So just pressing out as many of those lines. I don't mind if there's a few lines, but I don't want too many. Now I'm just warning you, I haven't thought through the whole process of using these cards from Woe to Go, so this craft with me is purely that. You're just coming along for the ride, and sometimes I can take time to make decisions or decide which way I want to go. And I've kind of been a little bit nervous about doing this video just because I knew I didn't have a complete idea in mind, and I've been putting a bit of pressure on myself, so I decided that it was time to stop that and just be me. Literally, what you see is what you get. So for those of you who get bored, feel free to move forward, hit the fast forward, move to another channel. I don't really mind, but I just need to do my thing as I do it. Okay, so that's all I did. And when I did this the other night, I realized that it's actually left this beautiful grainy look on the paper. I hope you can see that in camera. And I was quite excited about that, and I wasn't sure if it would dry like that or whether it would lose that. So I'm just going to pop that up there to dry. And like all good cooking shows, something I made ahead of time. As you can see, it's actually kept that grain, so I was so excited about that. It just adds another element to it all over again. This had a little bit of a black mark on it. I'm not quite sure where that came from. It was on the pattern paper, so we'll work with that. As you can see, I've got little bits that have lifted. I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'll work around that and try and embellish it accordingly. Okay, so my next step. Now I did think about tearing these before rather than cutting, but I have done that with something else once before and it actually tore off the card or paper that I had glued it on. So because I don't want it to lift, I've decided I will cut it. Now I haven't decided if these will be pockets or tags, but I'm just going to go with my idea and we'll see how we want to use them. Sorry guys. Sometimes the scissors just won't. They're an old pair of scissors. They're not really made for crafting, but they do me well. I use these to do everything. I do all my fussy cutting with them, and I've done a lot of that lately. They're just my all-purpose scissors, so they are getting a bit sticky. I need to clean them again. And part of the reason I haven't done fussy cutting on camera is because I'm not the fastest person in the world, and well, it's kind of like watching paint dry, really. Okay. Now that one there I just noticed is lifting slightly at the corner, so I may have to add a little bit more Mod Podge. I think this one's the same. And I found that the pattern paper tends to curl a little bit in the corner when you first glue them. I don't know why that is, whether it's the nature of the paper or the age of the paper. Maybe just the fact that it's a thin paper, I'm not sure, but I have noticed that sometimes the corners don't always stick completely. Now I have considered sewing around these as well to attach my journaling paper to the back, so that will also help that. So I'm just going to get my Mod Podge, and our first brush was our finger. Again, not wanting to put glue on the top of it if I can get away with it. We've had all sorts of crazy weather here just lately. We've gone from, it feels like only a couple of weeks ago we were in the mid to late 40 degrees and I was flat being in my crafting space because I don't have air conditioning out here, and it was stifling. And then that seemed to tone down a little bit and we had some really nice days, and then all of a sudden we had a cold snap. So we actually had the fire going, and then it's warming up again. So back to t-shirts, and it's kind of crazy. All seasons at once. Okay, I think I might let those dry just for a little bit, and I'll move on to the next one. So I'll just set those aside. Looks like I've missed a bit. Yes, and today it's really windy outside. It is warmer, but quite windy, so just never know from one day to the next what we're going to get. Although I am glad it's not in the late 40s anymore. That was difficult to live with, I'm afraid. Did make me question why I was living here. Okay, I'm not going to fuss with those too much more. I'll leave those to dry. Now, the warmer tone one, I decided that I liked it as it is. So I've actually stamped, and this is what I did on camera the other night. I've stamped it with my music note stamp. Hoping you can see that. And, oh, sorry, getting used to this new camera setup. As you can see, this one here, you can barely see the name of the paint sample, so the other two haven't quite covered, but it's kind of hidden that a little bit. So depending on the stamp that you use, it may just fall into the background too. Okay, so what was I just thinking? Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. That's right. So I've used the Stays On Timber Brown to stamp that. Just with my music note stamp. It's one of my go-tos. I don't have a lot of different ink colours, but I do love what I have. I recently purchased a couple more from Craft, which I haven't used very much of. I have used this denim dye ink, which was really lovely. And I also purchased the Forest and the Plum. Again, trying to stick inside my vintage tones. Okay, so to my right I have my inspiration box. I have added to it. I'll just show you. All sorts of goodies. Lots of bits and pieces that I've added. It's been an interesting process. As I said in my last video, this is the first time I've done this, and what I found was that I actually found treasures that I forgot I had. I've had them for so long, or have packed them away and they've been slightly hidden and I've forgotten about them. So this was a really, really fun way to rediscover what I have available to me, and I'm hoping... I have a travel mug. Sorry, I just sidetracked myself. I have a travel mug with my cup of tea in it because my desk is always so chock-a-block full of things that it's a hazard to have a cup of tea in here. And I carried this in here just recently and spotted something on the floor that had fallen, so I bent over to pick it up, not realising that my lid was actually open and my cup of tea went all over my rug. So I had to pull my rug out and hose it down and clean it up, and so yeah, glad that was closed just now because I did just bump it and knock it over. Okay, so what I had in mind for these, and I'm keeping it simple, I don't want fussy, and I may add an embellishment later, I haven't decided, but I'm thinking pockets with just some lace trim. So I will sew these later. I haven't decided. I think I'll sew all the way around just to add a little bit of detail. Now I just want to go past there a little bit, so I won't do that on camera because my sewing machine isn't set up to having camera, and I don't want to have you sitting around bored, but you will get the general idea of what I'm thinking. So I'm just going to paper clip that on there, and I have a different lace here. And I think they will be quite pretty. Actually, I will ink around them, so I might do that now. I'll pop those back in my box. And I also have this one, which, can you see that? It's actually quite soft. It is a burlap, but it is quite soft. And my mum sent me this recently in a parcel. Bless her, she's been collecting all sorts of goodies for me, and she keeps surprising me with beautiful things. Hi Mum. I have sent her the link for my channel. I don't know that she's watched yet, but in case you do, love you. Okay. And I think that looks really pretty on there. So I'm just going to give these a quick ink around the edge. Now, my brushes seen better days, and I don't know about you guys, but I seem to go through a lot of these pads. So I only have a couple in my stash at the moment, I'm not quite sure when I'll get to town, so I'm kind of trying to make this last. And the other thing is, I actually think it inks better when it's been around a while. So I'm hoping you can see. And then I think they're really pretty and really simple. So I'm going to leave it at that. I did think about embellishing it, but I think that's lovely. And I'm trying not to add too much bulk to my journal because, well, firstly, I'd like the bride and groom to be able to put their own treasures in there. And I do have quite a bit of paper in quite a small journal, so I'm thinking it will be quite full, speaking from experience before. I've usually only ended up putting about a total of, I think, 8 pages in each signature. I've had to cull back because they got too bulky. So I'm hoping to be a little bit more careful. Sometimes I just get out of control and who knows what's going to end up in here. And I do have some bits and pieces that I've made up for journals that I haven't used. So one of these days I'll have to create something that is just a mishmash of different bits and pieces because they're all beautiful, but they were too much. So that's the other reason I'm trying to tone down the number of embellishments. And I do want them to have some space to add their own treasures. So, okay, that goes that way. Okay, so that's what we have. As I said, I have 3 signatures, so I'll probably do lots of things in 3s. And whether I add them all, as I said, I've been known to take things out, so I think they're lovely. Okay, so first pocket's done. Now I only want 3 of these, so I'm going to work with those 3 for today. And I'm going to ink around them again. So the pockets that I've just done with the lace on the front, I'm going to actually sew those down as pockets, so I won't do anything with the back of those. They don't require, and I'm just going to lightly now, I don't know if you can see the difference that makes. As you can see, I still have a little bit of lifting here, but it just kind of blends it in if you just go over it ever so lightly. You can still see that grain in the paper, which I really, really love that effect. Okay, so we'll do that with the others. And I do, oh yes, I just wondered about the time. I just suddenly realised that I haven't even checked. I've been so busy. You're helping me find my mojo. Again, just ever so lightly over the top. And then this one. Now I'm sure there'll be 1,000 things that you can do with these paint chip samples, and like I said, my aesthetic is vintage, so that's kind of where I'm sticking. Hence the reason behind the way I'm doing this, but I think they're lots of fun to have a play with. Okay, so again, this is what I've ended up with. I've got some bits of my brush. I'll have to dust that off. And this is what I do. I just pick up my parchment and brush it off into my bin. Sorry about that. Oops, I think I bumped the camera. My apologies. I haven't been too bad, I don't think. Okay, so I just want to create some little embellishments. So I might just do a couple of I do have, I pulled these little clusters aside. I'm not sure I want to use the blue because I'm not sure it's the right blue. That one might be okay. Actually, that could work if I add that across the bottom. I don't think it really matters which way around that goes. So that's what I'm thinking for that one. And I might do a little bit of script stamp behind it. Okay. So, again, the Stays On Timber Brown. Now, I've just got to find my script stamp. I think I put it in the back of my box, actually. Yes, in my inspiration box. What a great thing. Now, I probably did see that on Gayle's channel and I'd forgotten. It just came to me the other day when the inspiration box I'm talking about came to me the other day when I was literally fluffing over what I was going to do, what I would add, how it would all come together, and I went, I need some order. I need to know what I can take. Now my script stamp is actually really hard to tell which way around it goes, so I've just put a T for top. I hope you can see that. Sorry, I bumped the camera again. Just so that I know, saves me guessing and trying to work it out. Now I don't want my stamp to be perfect, so I'm not using a stamp block. I don't want a perfect impression. I just want that hidden detail at the back. Okay. You can see that? And I will probably sew these on as well with my sewing machine. You can hand stitch them, you can glue them, whatever you'd like to do. Now by adding that little bit of lace, it also covers the writing and that little tear in the paper that I have. I'm really hoping you can see this in camera okay. So I'm just going to add. Now I don't know about everybody else, but I'm a stickler for the distressing, and I'm afraid I even do it with my clusters. So if I ever happen to do a video making clusters, be warned that it may include a lot of inking because I just love the way it looks. So that's that one. And I love that. I love that so much. It's simple, it's clean, but it's pretty. And that actually might make a really nice journaling card. I can put a tab on the top and just put some brown paper on the back to cover that over, is what I'm thinking. Okay, so I'll probably do the others the same. I might stamp these now, and I will have to make some more clusters to work with my aesthetic. I actually love that this really doesn't have any other fabric in there. It has a tiny bit of cheesecloth at the back, and I think apart from the lace, that's the only fabric in there, so that's refreshing too. I tend to love the texture of the fabric, so I do tend to include it a lot, but sometimes every now and then when it's not part of it, I actually really love that too. So oh, I forgot to put my piece of paper down. I'm not actually sure where I've put it. Let's see if I can find it. Let's get a new one. When I'm stamping, I like to put a piece of brown paper under my stamping, and then when it's covered in stamp that I'm happy with, I can use that, and I don't care which way around the stamping goes. It's a bit like using the books, the book pages to do your gluing in. I always seem to have just little bits, so I love that I can use that later. Reminds me of the postmark stamps that you get where the postmarks are in all different directions. And I can use this to clean my stamp off. Okay. Just getting a wet one. So that I can clean my stamp. Try and clean up after myself as I go, because the less hot mess I add to the already hot mess is better. I don't know about you all, but when my creative mind takes over, it's a scary place. And I've been so zoned lately that I haven't wanted to do anything else. I just want to get going with this. Okay. So as you can see on my stamping paper, I now already have quite some good stamping impressions on there, and that was just by stamping over the top of the paper and cleaning my stamp on there. So over time I will use that. 39 minutes. We might have time to do a cluster. I just have some scraps here, my tea stain paper. This is my, it's actually this paper here, the baking paper or parchment paper as you refer to, that I have done my tea staining on. So when I do my tea staining in the oven, I pop sheets of this over the top of my baking trays. I have 2 big baking trays, and they end up beautiful by the end of it. So this is my recycled paper, and it does have a texture to it. I don't know if you can see that. Sorry, I do have a glare. Okay. Just tearing a little piece of that off. I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with this, but okay, I want the torn edge. Actually, I'm just thinking maybe I should stop the video there and start a new one. And I'll just take you along with me for the ride because I'm going to keep going. Okay, bye everyone. I'll see you in the next video.